Hello, everyone. We are back with D1011, and tonight we have Sarah Cruz, Third Ward Councilperson, and she's been in this position a while. Full disclosure, she is my council person. I am in the third ward. A lot of people might not know that, but I'm in the third ward. Woo, the best ward. No, just kidding.
It is.
And actually, I interviewed Sarah when she first got in this seat, like almost 10 years ago. No, like not 10,
It'll
maybe
be
like 8.
9 years. Yeah, 10 years ago, because I'm serving my ninth year.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Oh, that doesn't, wow, that's amazing. So
yeah.
9 years ago, that's amazing.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. And a lot has happened in the last 9 years. When I first began this journey, I was a resident with a family and with a real interest in maintaining Bloomfield's integrity and making it even a better place to live. But I didn't know what was totally possible or impossible at the time. And I learned very quickly what my role as a council person was required to be, and then what extra add-ons and things that I could bring to the role. And one thing was I was an urban studies major in college. So I don't know if I mentioned that. So I do have a real passion about community economic and community development. I've always worked in youth development, particularly like after school programs and summer programs, but I've always worked in places like Newark or Patterson and where we did programming that connected youth work to civics and government um, and community development. So everything I've done is like blended in that way, and I real have a real interest in place and people in their place and making it all work and meld together, if that makes sense. So
Hey, I did not know that you were an urban studies major. It's kind of like very strange. Like sometimes here in Bloomfield, the person is just is a council person, but we don't know anything else about them.
yeah,
And you know, you kind of know like should we be asking like all of your background information? Is that unfair, et cetera, et cetera? But I think it's important that people know that you studied urban studies. That's a big deal. That's a big
yeah,
deal. That actually matters. The fact that you've done that and you've worked in that field, and we kind of see that from the 9 years you have been here. As D1011, we talk a lot about urbanism, urban planning. That is kind of like our focus. So how would you use community benefit agreements or similar tools to ensure that new development directly benefits third ward residents here?
sure. So currently there's projects that are happening in Bloomfield that are in action. I'll give one example of a development that is going to be housing on Broad Street, downtown Bloomfield. There is, I don't know if the word is community benefit agreement, but there is um, an agreement with the developer for giving back to the community in a financial way. So, and in addition, there's a requirement for them to have uh, low income housing in their development as well. So I see things like that, like talking to the developers in that process of making requirements that we are getting something back for our community, if it's monetary, if it's space, that we're hiring our residents to work. Things like that, I think benefit our community in an agreement form or just in general. The more a developer invests in the community and gets to know the people and know what people need, the better for them. So I think it's really important to keep those to keep in communication about.
Yes, that is wonderful. I mean, I think that's the thing. We know we need to start, telling developers, well, not start telling, but we are all a community, whether that be the business people, the people who are residents, et cetera, the people who work for the government. We're all a community. And like, okay, what are we going to do for each other? What benefits as, as residents, as business people, as developers? So that's
Right.
wonderful to hear. What is your vision for the third ward in like the next like 5 to 10 years, in regards to like what should change and
What's
what
possible.
should stay the same? Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I agree that the third ward is the best in Bloomfield because, first of all, we've got the two train stations. Um, I believe that we need to maintain our train stations and advocate for the improvements, the schedules, the trains, the shelters, and all those things to keep our commuter, to keep the commuter community healthy. Um, I personally use Watsessing train station. I know that there's activity coming to make it accessible with two elevators on both sides. That's coming for down in the line in like a few years. But I'd like to stay in those conversations so that I can just make sure that I know what's happening. Something I want to do in my next term is to be better about when I have those types of conversations or in those rooms, sharing it back out with the community. Um, so I think maintaining our train stations or improving them. I would like to see more walkability in the area. We are a one-car household, with everybody works and everybody walks around town. I get all the feedback from my own family about the walkability and the safety. I'd like to see a lot of improvements in that area. We also still have an opportunity to preserve open space in the third ward. So I'd like to make sure that I'm on the pulse of that to make sure that is continuing. For example, um, around the Grove Street light rail station, we have the DPW. And that's an opportunity to do something really great there. And, I always want to remain part of the conversations is what's important to me.
So what do you like? What kind of like attractions do you think, or what kind of developments do you think would help pedestrians in regards to walking around the third ward? I think that that's one of the key part. The reason I think the third ward is the best ward, not just because I live here, but the reason that I moved here because they have two train stops right there makes I think this area like super valuable for people, and valuable is more than just money, but just in regards to being able to like get places, to go places. When the New Jersey Transit went down, it didn't really impact us as much because we have that light rail. um
Right.
how we could extend the light rail to Watsessing. How do
That
you
was
feel
so
about that idea?
as an urban planner in my head, that is the dream, right? Like I believe that. But as the council person, and knowing what my capacity is, I know that would take a really, really long time. I'm not saying it's impossible. It could be something to be advocated for, but it would take a lot of people at the table and money and data and proof that it's something that will be successful. Like, for example, I know that I stay up on Newark development and the PATH train, there's the talk about it extending out to the airport. That conversation started 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, and they're probably just starting to purchase and build. And so I'd love to see something happen quickly, but I know that things are going to take time. I just want to be a part of those conversations and listen to the residents, people like yourself, and what are you hearing? What do I need to know so that I can then turn that over? A lot of times residents don't reach out to me. Unfortunately, I'd like to see more of that. Um, Very rarely do people directly contact me to request what they need. If they do, I do my best. But I just want to hear more from people. What do they want to see? It's not just my vision, it should be a collaborative vision.
I think one of the challenges here is that, and this is just all of New Jersey, we don't really have that. Our media, I'm part of the media, but our media is very much like New York. This is happening in New York, and it's not so much what's happening here. So hopefully, as we strengthen D10 and 11, I mean, think about it. I interviewed you 9 years ago, and I'm still here interviewing you.
Yeah,
So once we can strengthen our media, we can be part of that conversation of getting that information out to the people, at least in the third ward. Um,
yeah,
do
I would love
you
that.
yeah, I mean, I think about well, you know what? So you shouldn't have told me you were into like urban planning and urban studies, because now look at me. Look at me now. Anyway, I have one more like question, and now I'm gonna try to go to a different like area.
Okay.
If New Jersey Transit divests land or property in Bloomfield, especially the Grove Street station, like I'm always I we kind of did a little like a a little show on Grove Street and the parking lot and what it could be and what it is right now. What do you have any vision for the Grove Street parking lot? Not trying to put that like, on you, but like, what are some ideas that you could see happening? I mean, you've been here, so what are some ideas that you could see happening in development in regards to the Grove Street station? I think in a way that would kind of alleviate some issues in regards to like the reason why people who kind of don't have much to do hang out there is because there's nothing there. So,
So you're
what
talking
is? Do
specifically
you
the
have any
Grove
visions
Street
for that
light rail,
area?
the Grove Street light
Yes.
rail station. Um, so
Yes.
I don't see what you're seeing, which is so this is a great conversation. So when you're saying people hanging out and challenges over there, I don't know what they are. So I want to know more. I want to know about that presentation that you had made. What I know about the area is that it's dark. It's nothing out there besides our DPW and the station itself. And that there's just Wendy's. Oh, I think you're talking about there, like the whole where people are sitting waiting for buses and things like that.
No, not necessarily. Okay, I'll tell you what happened, and I'll tell
Yeah,
you
yeah. Tell me
for
more.
me, it really wasn't an issue. But sometimes on the light rail Grove Street station, people would like sit there, okay? And here's the problem. Was not the problem for me. The problem was I think New Jersey Transit got kind of like, oh, there are people sitting there. So in order to stop the people from sitting there, they removed the benches from. So if you're at the Grove Street station, there you can't sit and wait for the train. Luckily, the Grove Street train comes all the time, so you don't really need
Yeah.
the benches. But I think they thought, oh, we're gonna have problems. We gotta remove the seats for the train. So like I
Okay.
said, it wasn't really even me. I think it was New Jersey Transit, but I'm like, if there were more stuff there, people wouldn't feel like, oh, it must be cool to hang out here. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Yeah,
just I don't want to make it people to seem like it was bad or it was like, because I take it all the time. I actually have no problem with it. The guys there are swell. They even wait for me when I run there and I'm like late. They're like, oh yeah, well, wait for her.
yeah.
So I don't have a problem with it, but I'm just saying I think that it would be if there was more stuff going on there, I think people would complain less. Not complain less, but they would be less critical, less nervous. You get off the train, there's like
Yeah, I
nobody
definitely
there.
feel like that station, that area, and a person who lives over there and uses the light rail, not enough to notice the benches were gone, but it definitely needs attention. It needs the town to figure out what we'd like to do on our end of things, and it needs communication with transit. Um, so we, as a council person, I have the ability to have a conversation with New Jersey Transit and see what their plans are, what are they doing, kind of get an update. Is there anything happen at the grocery station? You know? So just again, people making me aware so that I can make the connections to see what is happening, what's possible. Is anybody even thinking about that besides the few of us, you know? So I need to hear more. I need to hear more for sure.
Yeah, because I feel like that's an introduction to Bloomfield. So in a way, like that should be like kind of like a kind of like a marquee station. I think like I went to a talk with the new rep for New Jersey Transit, like who's the customer service rep, Francois, and he's very like attentive. And I told him like, oh, it would be really great if we had some cool stuff going on there, even like some programming in that on the train on the actual platform. That might be something interesting. I always, even with D1011, we try to activate that station by getting people to like go to it, like, oh, meet us here at the train station and we'll go here.
Okay.
So I mean, if we can have more of course I know you're a council person, what do you guys get paid as council people here?
We get $7,000 stipend.
No, I'm just kidding. I didn't mean it like that. No, I'm simply saying that to people are aware of what you can do with a $7,000 stipend, and you know what I mean, and you clearly have to have other jobs and things like that. Okay, anyway, but I'm saying for development, that's a premium spot.
It is. I agree with
moving
you.
on from that.
I
Yeah, yeah.
agree with you.
So, what are like the strategies you would used to address affordability in the third ward and to balance new development and kind of like anti-displacement protections. Because this is what I tell people all the time, and I'm gonna let you talk. And I'm sorry, this is what I tell people. I'm like, look, that this is like you said, the third ward has 3 trains. Manhattan is full. People are coming. So we can't
Mhm.
pretend like they're not going to come. What do you have a plan for when they come to
Right.
protect the residents that are here rather than I'm just going to scream, don't come, because that's not going to happen.
So I want to say that I think that I already did something to protect residents here. I was a part of the rent leveling committee or rent leveling board, which is a board made up of residents. Well, it was. So it was a board made up of Bloomfield residents and would hear cases from landlords or tenants about changes made in their rent. So there's a cap on rent increases in Bloomfield for 6 or more units of 2%. Um, there are units that are protected from that. Obviously, like your transit hub area, new development around the Bloomfield Center train station does not have that rent control requirement, but a majority of the buildings, 6 units and up, do. So on that committee, I no longer am the liaison, but we did work to change the ordinance to lower the number of units that fall under rent leveling to homes with 4 or more units. Now, there's a ton of those. Like we know that there's a lot of in my neighborhood particularly there's the 4 unit duplex style buildings. Now they're under rent leveling for that 2% cap, and we we should be sharing more with residents about rent leveling so that they know that it's an option for them, and landlords too. That's something that I hear about. People will say to me, "Oh, my rent went up $400." And I'm like, "Where do you live? How many units are in the building? I'm sure you don't know about rent leveling. You need to go on the website and fill out your form so that you can be seen by the rent leveling board." So that was one of the changes that I voted, or to make, and it had been a recommendation of mine because of so many people that needed to have some protection on their rent. The other thing we did is we froze seniors at 2%, so they can't ever go up, which is great, and that allows some affordability. And then we diversified the rent leveling board to be renters, owners, and landlords, so that there would be multiple voices on that board. So that's one thing I did already. Something
That's
else
very
that I have.
important. I mean, I think
Yeah,
go ahead. Go
no, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I'm saying that's really important to like lower the number of that the number of units. But I think another thing I think is really important. I think for residents to know is that if we don't build up, people will come and buy all those little properties, and then
Yeah,
you're going to get priced out anyway. I mean, it's just kind of like in a way people are kind of like, I don't want to see this building, but in this way, it's kind of like that big building's protecting you.
yeah.
We used
And
to call
also,
them in California, we called them yuppie towers.
oh, well, so here's my thoughts on the new development buildings. I grew up in this area. I grew up in Montclair, drove up and down Bloomfield Avenue my whole life. Everybody wants us to be Montclair like. I will tell you, we used to be like Bloomfield used to be, excuse me, Montclair used to be like Bloomfield. There was nothing to do, nowhere to go, no crowds of people. As a young teenager, I could go to the library on Sunday, thankfully. Um, so I'm very familiar with the area. I remember the Harts Mountain property and the property behind it lighted, covered in fencing for years, nothing happening. And then it came, and we have grocery stores and places to go, and a lot of people. And the people that live in those apartment buildings are using all those amenities. People very much complain, like, "Oh, New Yorkers are coming." My family was New Yorkers that came to Montclair, and stayed here for the next, I won't say how old I am, but so I welcome new people to help grow the fabric of our community. It wasn't a diverse town originally. Now look at us. So we have to embrace new people. We have to welcome them, see them for the value that when you're ready to sell your house, they can buy your house. Um, you know, that most of the people are coming in are young people. Like we need that. That's what makes our community thrive and grow. And we live in an area that's so many amenities close by, very accessible, so many things to do. And it's a part of living in a place that's so dense, is all these things come with it.
No, it's very true. I think people, it's so funny when people, I tell people that this is the most dense state in United States. They're like, what? I was like, yes. I was like, also, it's the most urban state in the United States. And I think we can't see it because we're so close to Manhattan.
Right. We assume
And like,
that's
but
the
I'm like,
city. Yeah.
I'm talking about the entire state. Yeah, it makes us look like, oh, we're not. I'm like, and I promise you, I've been around this. This is a very dense area. There's not many, like
Yes.
right now I can look outside, I can see people walking around.
Mhm.
Growing up as a kid in Los Angeles, I would never see anyone. We would just, no one walked on the street. So it's a
Uh,
very dense place. I'm gonna ask you one more question on in this area, but like, how do we avoid like corporate America? Okay, yeah, this is a big one. How do we
I
avoid
hope I
corporate
can answer.
America just buying up all the properties and then jacking up the prices? I mean, because that's one of the problems with this place, and that's one of the things. It's like the wonderful thing. We have a horrible. It's horrible, but it's wonderful. We have this wonderful problem. We're so close to Manhattan. We have so many trains. How do we? I think how do we stop? Like, what do we do in order to kind of like make sure that that regular people like us can continue to live here, but yet at the same time, benefit from the fact that that not only do we have wonderful things going on in New Jersey, because I feel like New Jersey is a great place. We have Newark, we have things going on in downtown Bloomfield. Halcyon Park has a burgeoning literary community. Then we have
Yeah, for real.
Montclair. Yeah, we also have Montclair, so we have all of this stuff. Like, I mean, like I said, I know you're a council person in Bloomfield, and you're not like in charge of a whole bunch of things. Like, not you're in charge of some things. You are kind of like our representative, and like,
Yes.
what do you think we could do in order to you
So
know
I think that's a good
stop that
question.
time? But
I want people to know that I live here. I'm a homeowner and a taxpayer. So the benefit I get of being involved on council is to know where my tax dollar is being spent, to be able to ask questions about how it's being used for myself and for my constituents. So I think it's important for everybody to just remain in contact, remain involved, stick with facts, and understand what is possible for me to do and what's not possible. So we have a bill to pay to run this town, period. Right? And we have to trust the people who are in those leadership positions to present to us what they believe to be the best, most effective use of our dollar. And then it's my job to advocate to make sure that we're not losing anything, that if we have anything new we need to do, that that's funded, and ask those types of questions. So it's really about paying attention, reading, staying involved, going to my like administrative check-in meetings, because a lot happens outside of the council meeting. Um, in our check-ins with the administrators, like any job, like you have a staff meeting, you're not talking about all the actual details in the meeting. A lot of work happens before that. And when you get to the meeting, you're presenting your best thing, and people can ask questions, you can go back and work on it. So I hope I'm making sense, but the concept is I live here. I raise a family here. I use the services here. I want to maintain what we have and make it better, and make sure that we have the money to do it without losing anything along the way. So that's my ability as a council person.
So kind of going to fiscal policy, Bloomfield has facing a very long-standing structural debt, like lots of towns in Bloomfield. What is your strategy for managing this? I mean, I know you're saying you talk to the administrators, but how do you manage these things and also at the same time invest in the future? Because you have to take care of these things, and how do you do this? How do you communicate this? And still invest in the future and still kind of, I think that's one of the challenging things I think about your position.
Yeah, I think again, it was a learning process along the way. What do I have, I don't want to say control over, but the say in, and where can I ask the questions and make changes? So for me, I'm an advocate for the healthy, clean community work. A lot of the things that I do or I'm connected to in town are funded through grants and things of that nature. So in terms of like make it's important just make like I said, making sure that all of our services are intact. And if we are supposed to lose something, if someone there's going to tell us, okay, we're going to fund the budget, we're going to have to lose this thing. It's my job to say, ask all the questions and go, have we done everything we possibly can before we have to reduce this service, remove this service? Have we looked for federal funding? Those are my questions that I ask. This financial crisis that we're in right now in our town and across the country is so different than what we've been experiencing before. It's so different. We went from when I started kind of like, oh, things are regular, right? And then COVID, because right after I got started, the COVID came, and then COVID money, and then no COVID money, and then skyrocketing healthcare and gas. It's every year is different. So again, it's our job to ask those questions when we hear, oh, we're going to suffer because we're going to have to cut this. But thankfully, I have not heard a lot of that in my time here. So even though, you know, we're in a fragile state, I don't hear, oh, we're going to lose XYZ very often. In fact, I'll tell you when we had to spend less money on some flowers this year. That was when I knew, like something like that. You make tough decisions and have to ask questions when you don't agree.
No, I understand. I'm gonna start wrapping it up because I we've had such a kind of a lively conversation. I'm gonna ask you about participatory budgeting. That is something that I'm very into, or actually just very interested in. Participatory budgeting is one of the methods where you gain input and support from the community. Is this part of, might this be part of a plan for future inclusion to have participatory budgeting, kind of like, okay, this is what our budget is, and this is what, we want to spend it on, like a portion of it, not all of it, but just like,
Right,
okay, here's this chunk of money. What would you like to spend it on, et cetera, get some input. So that way people feel like more invested in their town, or actually feel they have more control, because it's like it's almost like direct democracy, kind of like
right,
more like what we have at the local with our politicians in the local level, but with the actual money.
right. So I'm picturing that happening and thinking, oh, I like the concept. I do. I'm thinking about where we can make that happen. I need to see examples. You said it's happening. I want to see examples and learn more about it. Because when I think about our budget, you got the whole cost, it's the whole pie. We know that 9 slices go, how many slices in a pie? 8. We know that 7 slices have to be taken care of. If we know how much is left and the goals, you should get some public input. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to see it in action someplace and read about some examples and stuff and see what we could do here. I like to come from a place of yes before no. So we can learn more before
No, no,
we make any sort
I
of
understand.
decision.
Actually, no, Newark is actually, well, the first place it was done was in Brazil, like 30 years ago. And now Newark is actually doing it. It's the first time. I was actually part of a project, participatory seeds, or I call it PSB. And they talked about it. So this is something, that I can give you some information on it.
Yeah.
If you're, I'm sure, like I say, you probably know, but the thing is, this is very new here. It's very new in New
Mm.
Jersey. It's literally like 2 weeks ago was the first time it like
Okay.
happened.
Yeah,
So
because I'm
it's
like,
not like, oh,
I,
okay, you would
I, I don't
know.
know.
No, no, no. That wasn't like happening like all the time. It just,
Okay. Yeah, I would
just
read
kind
it.
of
I would
putting that
definitely
out
read about
there.
it.
Yeah. So like, and what's the final question, or what's one issue that's facing the third ward that you feel is being overlooked, or like what's something that you would like to leave our listeners with, just because we've been here for like 30 minutes now?
Okay. It's hard to summarize because I love my community and I sometimes feel like I'm so sappy about it, but I am. I do love my community. Like I said, I lived here, I have my children here, they're still here. Um, I want people to know that if they don't feel like their needs and issues are being addressed, ask themselves kind of why. You know what I mean? Like, who are you telling? How are you sharing? What's going on? Because like I said, if people reach out to me directly with concerns, I try to do my best to work on them. So I just want to let people know that I'm a regular person who's available and would like to hear from you because the third ward is very, very large. You had said you didn't know that the Bloomfield Third Ward. So it goes from Glen Ridge down to Belleville, over to East Orange, touches Newark, and um, it's very, very large. And I live down here, what I like to call south of Watsessing, SOWA, um, and I don't see everything. So I would like people to reach out more and speak to me more, or maybe I can have more opportunities for just hanging out in different neighborhoods in the community to find out more what people want to have addressed. So I'd like to leave it with that I'm available, I listen, and I work with people for people.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was so great to speak with you. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the future and what you get into in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure.